The old folks of Oakhaven knew the stories. They had been passed down for generations, whispered warnings about the woods that clung to the edges of their isolated town. Those woods held secrets dark and hungry. They spoke of a creature, a being of shadow and emptiness, the Hollow One, they called it. It wandered the woods, seeking warmth, seeking a light to extinguish. The elders warned against inviting strangers into their homes after dark. For you never knew, they said, what might be lurking behind a friendly smile, what hollow hunger might be masked by a charming facade. The Hollow One craved warmth, craved life, and it would stop at nothing to sate its endless, gnawing hunger. The stories were just stories, of course. Fairy tales to frighten children and keep them from wandering too far into the woods. At least that's what most of the younger generation believed. They had never seen the shadows move in the night. They had never heard the whispers on the wind. They had never felt the icy dread that gripped the hearts of their elders. But the elders knew better. They knew that some stories were more than just stories. They were warnings. Cassie whistled along to the radio, her headlights cutting through the gathering darkness. She was running late, later than she'd like to be, but her GPS promised she was only an hour away from her destination. The small town of Oakhaven, if you could even call it a town, judging by the lack of civilization she'd encountered so far, was proving to be more trouble than it was worth. But the job was the job, and Cassie, a freelance photographer always up for a challenge, was determined to see it through. Her phone buzzed, the screen illuminating her face with its pale light. A text from her client reminding her of the deadline and the importance of the photographs. Cassie sighed, a knot of tension forming in her stomach. She hated rushing, hated the pressure of time constraints. But she was a professional, and she would deliver, even if it meant braving the creepy backroads of nowhere. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. Cassie swore, pounding her fist against the steering wheel. Of course, her car would choose this moment, in the middle of nowhere, with night closing in, to stage a dramatic demise. She tried the ignition again, but the only response was a dull click. She was officially stranded. She pulled out her phone, the battery icon blinking ominously in the corner of the screen. No signal, typical, just her luck. She rummaged in her bag for her charger, only to find it was still plugged in at her last hotel. Double typical. Just then, headlights appeared in her rearview mirror, growing steadily larger. A rusty pickup truck slowed to a stop behind her. An old woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, peered out at Cassie through the open window. "You need help, dearie," she rasped, her voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "No, thank you," Cassie said politely, though her gut twisted with unease. "I've called for a tow truck. Should be here any minute." It was a lie, of course, but she wasn't about to accept help from a stranger, especially not in this desolate place. The old woman's eyes, sharp and knowing, lingered on Cassie for a beat too long before she nodded slowly and drove away. As darkness descended, the silence of the woods pressed in on Cassie, suffocating her. The wind picked up, whispering through the trees, sounding like voices murmuring secrets in a language she couldn't understand. She locked the car doors, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She tried to convince herself it was just the wind, just her imagination playing tricks on her. But deep down, a primal fear began to stir. A tapping sound, faint at first, reached her ears. She froze, straining to identify the source. It came again, a little louder this time. Someone or something was knocking at the window behind her.